Hello and welcome to another episode of the Arborist Growth Partners podcast. Super happy, hopefully second time lucky here for the recording. We got Matt Latham from Arborist on Demand. How are you doing,
I'm
Matt,
good.
today?
I'm good. Graham, how about you?
I'm doing okay. I feel like technology is working with us, not
It,
against
it
us, but
seems to be going
we will
good this
see
time. And
so
for those
far.
listening, this is not our first rodeo. We have tried this and failed miserably. So hopefully we'll have an awesome podcast and get to talk about some great things.
Absolutely. Let's see. Let's get right into this. Let's see if we can make this work. So, Matt, before I introduce you more formally, I'm going to ask you that question. What, in your opinion, give me two or three things that differentiates companies that absolutely thrive from those that are barely
Yeah,
surviving.
and that's a wonderful question. I love that you ask that like every time because that is so gold. That's such a golden question because
Awesome.
as professionals, we deal with trees and we understand that it's important to get to the root of the problem, right? As I had a mentor years and years ago that used to tell me all the time, he'd say, all these arborists are looking up to see what bug's eating it. He said 90% of the root problems start in the roots. And it's so true. And I
Mm,
think on that note, one of the root things that we as arborists need to realize is we are not in the tree care business. We are in a sense that we care for trees, but ultimately what it really comes down to is we're not in the tree care business, we're in the human care business. And when I
mm,
realized that, when I realized I'm in customer service essentially, and my clients are not the trees. Trees don't call me, they don't write the checks. It's the human involved. And then fast forward, it turns out there's a lot of research into how good trees are for people. And that's when my career really took off, when it changed my mindset really, is I realized that if
mm.
it's good for trees, it's good for people. And so we should do that.
That's amazing. That's such an interesting insight, actually. Customer service business, not tree
I know it's a
business.
little shameful, honestly, when you say it out loud.
So Matt, no. I think you're absolutely right, actually. And when I hear people talking about I'm going into tree service business, or I'm going in, even marketing
Hmm.
business, or I'm going to open an e-commerce store because I love that
Yeah,
thing, and we actually forget what we're actually doing for people.
yeah. Yeah, and I think when we really
So
get
that's
down to that, get down to the foundation of we're actually here to help people with the trees that they love and live under, that's when it really changes. Your focus doesn't go from, okay, we have to do this, this, and this, and this. You should do those things. We should follow ANSI 300 standards. We should
mm,
follow ISA best management practices. Very true. But at the end of the day, if the customer doesn't realize why we're doing the things that we're doing to their trees is to benefit them, it doesn't matter. Somebody's going to come out and it becomes a commodity. It becomes a price war, if you will,
right,
versus we're
right.
there to serve our clients. That comes across. And, honest, and I'm not trying to brag here, but my closing ratio is about 80%. And I think part of that is because
Mm,
first of all, I'm pre-qualifying people. If they don't qualify, if they don't have money or trees, what's the point? But second of all, is when I get there, I'm always looking out for them. As essentially, I am a fiduciary. By the way, if you hadn't checked it
mm,
out, go online and look up ISA Certified Arborist Ethics Agreement or ISA Arborist Agreement, Ethics Agreement, something like that. It'll come up with a little PDF, 3 pages. You as arborist signed it when you became a member of
yes.
ISA,
Okay.
even. You signed it. And in that
Right.
disclosure, it's 3 pages, basically saying you're a fiduciary. You have the not only the right, but the
Mhm.
obligation to look out for your clients
Mm.
and the general public, believe it or not.
That actually, that whole philosophy in my mind is what allows companies to
It
grow,
is. Yeah. And I've seen it countless times.
right?
Maybe they don't say it like that. They don't say those exact words, but the people that are succeeding out there in the industry that are really growing and thriving, they realize that. And they get people to answer
Mm.
the phones. They get people to be a friendly face, somebody that's out there looking out for them. When so many service guys, doesn't matter what industry, are just out there looking for their
Mm.
bottom dollars. They're looking for how can I
Yeah,
succeed and how can I make a
yeah,
million dollars? And it's unfortunate
yeah.
because when you actually take care of the client, all that stuff shows up. Yeah, you got to work out some kinks. Yeah, you got to figure out what your margins are. Yeah, you got to make sure your taxes are paid and all that good stuff. All those things matter. But at the end of the day, what really matters is we're there to serve people, and we do it through tree care.
Awesome. So Matt, tell us about yourself. Tell us about Arborist on Demand,
You know?
where you came from, what you wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
Where are you
Well, I
now?
wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I wanted to go into either astronomy. I wanted to be an astronaut, be a fighter pilot.
Oh, cool.
You can't see them, but I got glasses on like you. They're just built in. Um, and as soon as I get in there, I make like a 98 on the ASVAB, which is the military entrance exam. I'm showing up, and I got this beautiful bride of mine that she wants to get married, and I want to get married to her. And she's like, if you go into the military, I'm not going to be a military wife. Like, okay, that's a pretty heavy blow. So I show up and they say, well, I tell them, well, I want to be a fighter pilot. And they say, well, you got bad eyesight. You can do anything you want, but you can't do that. And so I wanted to go to eventually work my way up to the ladder to become an astronaut. But before that, even I wanted to go be a brain surgeon. And it turns out you got to do 12 plus years of schooling. And as soon as I found that out, see, you know what? Tree surgery sounds pretty good.
Never had that answer before. That's
That's
pretty
funny.
awesome. You wanted to be a superstar.
Yes, whatever. That's not true at all. I'm just a punk kid who climbs trees for a living, as far as I can tell. But yeah, I wanted to go do those things. I found out the limitations are I'm not a just sit there and go to school the rest of my life kind of guy. I want to get in there and I want to do stuff. So I was selling security alarm systems for a company up in Arlington and north or kind of in between Fort Worth and Dallas. And the guy's company folded. He couldn't make ends meet. So he says, I can't pay you anymore, but I've got this friend of mine that he's got a tree service, and that's a very light term. It was a landscape company and they happened to do trees, but he said, hey, you can go for maybe $8 an hour, $10 an hour. You can haul limbs all day, every day. And so I said, well, it's better than what I'm doing now. And so I took the job, went out there, and I realized I loved it. It's fun to be a guy and just go out and do guy things and, haul limbs and lay sod and trim trees and design landscapes and things like that. And I really loved it, being outdoors. It was super fun. As many of us tree guys, I thought I knew better than my boss. Which maybe there was some truth to that. Realistically, probably not.
Not just tree
What's
guys.
that?
Not just tree
Oh
guys.
yeah, us guys, I think in general. I thought I could do better, so I go off and start my business. And I started at probably 2007, 2006, somewhere in there. And 2008 hit, and 2008 hit hard. At the same time, I had one of my employees stole everything that I owned, and I was gone in 1 week. I went from like, we're doing something, we're kind of working it, feeling it, to nothing. I'm out of business. I'm not getting any phone calls. I had a client that actually told me, hey, this guy makes you look bad. And it was just really sudden, really quick. All of a sudden, I'm looking for a job. And so I was very blessed. I went to work for a guy named Rick Zampino, who was a board certified master arborist and registered consulting arborist. And he showed me this whole world of arboriculture and tree care that I had no idea even existed. And I remember very distinctly, like behind me, I got these cool pictures or whatever. He had a wall of fungus. Like, I'm not even kidding, like Armillaria, Ganoderma, all these different fungal pathogens that would attack trees. And I remember seeing it and like, hey, Rick, what's that? What's this? I saw this out in the field today. And I just stay after and pick his brain. And eventually I got so irritating to him, he fired me because of it. But the impact was already there. He had already had an impact, and all of a sudden, like, this whole world of tree biology, tree care, human care, etc., was opened up to me. And so I think it was 2010 was when we parted ways. And actually, we worked together, and we're friends to this day. So don't hear me wrong here. Great guy, and he taught me so much. And I think that year I went and became a certified arborist in 2010. And as they say, the rest is history. I started competing in tree climbing championships. I started, getting out there and hanging out with all the cool people and all that. And what I learned very quickly is that this industry is very much a grassroots. We are very much on the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to go. This is the beginning phases. And even though we've got really cool technologies that are coming about, y'all just imagine in 20 years, we've already got ground penetrating radar that can map roots. Can you imagine 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road? what these foundational things that we're building as an industry are going to become. I really see such a bright future. And I was very inspired when I went to the ASCA Consulting Academy. ASCA is American Society of Consulting Arborists, and that's that RCA, wherever I don't know, where am I? Somewhere in here. There we go. I figured it's opposite, so I'm really confused. So I went and got my RCA. In order to do that, you have to go through a consulting academy. And I remember Jeff Ling was the president at the time. And Jeff stands up there and he says, tree care is where modern medicine was in the 50s and 60s. And that really struck a nerve with me, because I realized he's absolutely right. At that time, I'd been in tree care for almost 20 years. And, I'd seen 2 decades of growth. And we used to climb on Blake's Hitch. We used to climb on a tot line, things like that, and I grew up on one which I now know to be called the super slide knot. It's kind of a Blake's Hitch, if you will, but like modified to where you don't loop over the bridge and it doesn't bite it. And so you have to manage the knot. You're either like managing it or you're going down. And so that's what I grew up on. Not the manila ropes. I'm not that old school, but I was definitely, the only thing we knew was Arborplex. And my hands have the scars to prove it. And so, just 20 years, I've watched the industry really grow up, and it's been exciting to be a part of and to actually watch myself as well. But again, just projecting into the future, if this is what our forefathers, if you will, the foundation that they've laid, and now we're starting to build on that, like, can you imagine in 20, 30 years where the industry is going to be? We're going to have robots like figuring out, doing tree risk assessments, things like that. Combine that with some technology like the one we're talking on now. And it's like, the world is our oyster, guys. We need to grow up. We need to get serious about what we're doing and be a part of that growth. Because why not? If a tree's not growing, it's dying, and so are we.
It's interesting you talking about the future. I was in a meeting this morning with a friend and colleague back in the UK. He has a very successful business in the travel industry, implementing software, robotic process automation for companies. Well, the thing is, AI is now a thing. So they had to do a complete pivot.
Yes.
Get rid of what they were doing, completely change. It happened so quickly. I've never heard anybody talk about the future of tree service business like you are. So can you dig into that some more?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I'll just...
What do you see coming? Like for a tree service company is up and running now, what should we be aware of?
Oh, it's so fun.
Even like you could just make it up. I don't care. It's just trying to get people to see that things do change.
Well, I'll give you a couple examples. Andre, I think his name is a guy that started a company called Adbian, Adbian. Wonderful company. They use both LiDAR and phototelemetry. There's a fun big word for you, to basically 3D render a tree. What? Like, you can actually take the tree and you can put a 3D model of it that you can drop into CAD, and you can design buildings around it and things like that. Wow. Okay, that's cool. Then you got a guy named Callum Throw that's out there. He's from your neck of the woods across the pond, and with a name like Callum, of course. And he's doing the same thing with wood decay fungus, with basidiomycetes and things like that. And he's 3D rendering them. I don't know what that technology is good for. That's above my pay grade, but it's super cool that we're able to take this and we're using technology and all the cool, super smart phones that we got, and we're integrating that into what we do. Another example, I mentioned it earlier. We talked about sonic tomography and GPR, ground penetrating radar, for roots. There's multiple companies out there where you can take sound waves, you can ping a little thing across there. You put like 6 sensors or 12 sensors on the tree, you ping one of them and measure the travel time between each one of those nodes. And what you could do is use that to essentially map the inside of a tree. Unheard of 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're doing the same thing. We've got ground penetrating radar, and it turns out you can take those same antenna, you can wrap them around the trunk of the tree and measure the inside of the tree. So we can tell How much of the woody tissue is decayed? What impact will that have on structural integrity? You got guys like Frank Wren that are over there like pull testing and putting these little sensors on it to measure at what amount of force is the tree going to break. And so it's so cool because we're really like, there's some really smart people out there that are doing these things. This is just scratching the surface, you guys. Like, again, factor that in 10 years in the future. What are we going to see? I don't know. I have no idea. I think it's going to be pretty cool though.
A customer service biz, if I can turn up to somebody's yard and spend 30 minutes with a gadget to look at all the trees, that would be pretty cool and interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Can you take some pictures, take some measurements, whether that's with like a refract or not a refractometer, a penetrometer with like a what's the drill that you drill into the wood and you get resistograph. You've got sonic tomography. You've got all these different tools, and go in there and actually quantify and say, this is your likelihood of this tree failing in this amount of wind. And again, we're not even there yet, but we're getting there. And it's up to guys like you and me and everybody listening to start really pushing forward and start learning and growing. I don't have too many books with me right this second, but y'all read books. A lot of these guys, like I said, Frank Wren, there's so many guys, Nelson Costello, all these guys that are out there, just really pioneering the industry, and they've laid the foundation for us. It's up to us to take that information, to implement it out in the field and really drive growth. Because quite frankly, somebody's going to do it. May as well be you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are companies out there developing technologies. I remember being, I forget where it was now. Maybe it was a TCIA or it's an ISA trade show, and they were there with gadgets and things that, there's a fancy chart and a fancy graph of the inside of the tree. If you're just coming out of college, you've got some experience, you're thinking of starting a company, how can you use this technology to differentiate yourself from every other tree service company out there? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say maybe fresh out of college, go work for somebody that knows.
I was going to roll that. Yeah, maybe not fresh out of college, but maybe with a few years in.
Yes. And one thing that I really love about this industry is what I found, and I mostly found it in ASCA, but I found it in ISA too. I found it in TCIA, is there is almost always some old guy like me, or what I'm getting to be anyways. That's been I've done some things. I've done hundreds. I lost count at 800 crane removals. I've been there. I've seen some things. I've almost, unalived myself multiple times, and somehow by the grace of God and a little protection, PPE, made it out alive. But I realized there's all these other newcomers that they need guys like me to come out and kind of say, hey, come up here. This is where the good stuff is. And so if you just reach out and you join groups on Facebook, there's so many sarcastic, I call them the Arbros, you just we're all sarcastic, been there, done that. We do things that people can't do. And we've all got a little bit of narcissism in us and a little hot-headedness. But almost invariably, you can always find somebody that's real willing to say, look, I know you're down here. I'm up here, been there, done that. I want to help you out. So go find mentors, go find people that have been there and that have done that, because we're all available. Most of us have had our successes. You look at guys like Lindsay Purcell and Ed Gilman and guys like that, and they're out there teaching courses. Go to school, you guys. Go spend the $600 or $1,000 to take that course. I know you don't want to, but if you just stop drinking every Friday night for a month or two, you can probably afford it. Just take yourself seriously, because the reality of the matter is we are on the ground level of a very fast growing industry, and you're either going to go there and you're going to do that and get on board and be a part of that growth, or you're going to get left behind, and you're just going to be one of those guys that's like, well, I've been doing it for 35 years this way and it works. And meanwhile, the technology is 50 years advanced beyond you. So go out there and find the right guys, find the right courses, find the ISA is a great resource. Ask is a great resource. They do a monthly podcast where top guys in the industry, like the best of the best, will come in there and they'll teach. Like, go spend $30 a month on stuff like that. The next thing you'll know is you're going to learn and you're going to grow. And all of a sudden you're going to be looking back saying, hey, where's the next guy in line? I need to help them out. I need to reach down and pull them up where I'm at too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the commutes is amazing. Yeah. You know, whenever you go to one of the trade shows, you see people talking, meeting old friends, giving advice, sharing experiences. It's really cool, actually. I've got
It
to
is.
say. I want to go back a little bit and I want to go back to 2008, if you don't mind. And I just want to talk about how you recover from a disaster like you had then.
Yeah.
Because business goes up and down, and especially when you're starting out, it's incredibly difficult. And somebody I know, they got a great chart where, you know, it's like you're feeling really low in the morning, and then something happens and you're feeling great, and then you're back down here, and it's like a zigzag.
Well, we all need to get our
business.
dopamine hits nowadays, you know.
Yeah, we do.
So, you know, and then,
how do you come back? How do you do?
No, and that's a great question. You know, I think it has a couple of things, because recessions happen. We have last year, things were rough. I talked to a lot of guys. I talked to Bartlett. I talked to Savitry. I talked to Davey. They were all down last year with the new presidency and the new economy and all these things going on. Here's what I realize is there's always going to be those ups and those downs. But if you, again, going back to what we originally talked about, if you realize I'm not actually in this for me, I'm in this, and I'm not actually in this for the trees. Yes, we are. Of course, we take care of trees professionally. But at the end of the day, if my job is to serve my clients better than anybody else around me, my business dropped a little bit, but not that much. It did not affect very much. And I think part of that was because I'm actively, everything I do is designed to serve my clients, and they realize that. Some of them do, some of them don't, of course. But for the most part, if you are the top guy, not just when it comes to the level of professionalism that you bring to the table when it comes to tree care, but in the customer service realm as well, your clients realize that, and they want to spend money on you. They want to be able to make sure that their trees are taken care of properly so that they can enjoy them. And they realize, okay, I mean, they're humans too. They realize, yeah, we may be in a really low place financially and economically, but 9 times out of 10, if they've got the fee, if they're capable of spending money on their trees, and you've presented yourself as a valuable part of their system, as a valuable, let's say, employee or part of their staff of taking care of their home or their commercial property, it's not a big deal. Maybe they got to spend 10 or 20 or 30% less than they did last year. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're there providing amazing service, you're going to watch a lot of your competitors who don't provide amazing service go under. And then, by the way, that presents a golden opportunity to hire really top-notch professional people that may not be good at customer service or whatever. And so it really, and in 2008, I watched that happen. I was a part of that. My business went under. Meanwhile, Zampino's business grew, and I got to be a part of that. And it was really exciting because I got to see that happen. Everything's floundering and flopping and failing, and here we are. We're okay. Yeah, we took some hits. Yeah, we had to get creative in how we took care of our clients, marketed, and things like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I had a job, and a bunch of my friends and peers had a job because we were providing amazing customer service.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So you got to roll with the punches sometimes.
Yeah.
In your case, you got to work for somebody else, and ultimately now you're doing your own thing again.
Yeah.
Right. So what is it now that you're doing?
It's a little bit different. We provide, tree care for my neighbors. I'm happy to help. I got involved with some advocacy games and some political games and things like that. I'm the only arborist I know that's ever given a toast to the Houston mayor. which is fun. But we played a game. They saved the trees. He came in during our celebration, and they hand me the mic, and they're like, "Hey, give the mayor a toast." I'm like, "Hey, thanks for the heads up." He's a great guy, and he was really a big part of helping out. But mostly, what I do is consulting. I help people solve tree problems, and so whether that's a homeowner with a Meyer lemon baby tree in a pot that they've got a fungus growing on the leaves, or all the way up to I was just out with the Texas Historic Tree Coalition verifying a handful of trees. We got one of them registered as historic this past week too, which was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
So, it's ultimately I solve tree problems. It's consulting. I work with insurance. I work with expert witness litigation with attorneys. I work with municipalities. I work with developers, things like that. And then I work even with, like I said, my neighbors, because I realized a long time ago it doesn't matter how high up or how low you are. You're still a human being, and that matters, and we all have values. So if you got a tree that you love and live under, I'm here to help.
I'm curious. I see a lot of people that have been in the industry going to the consulting side of things. Is that a normal transition?
Not necessarily. And maybe, okay. I don't know if you know Jimmy Pritchard, up in Fort Worth area. Great guy, certified arborist. He's been climbing. He actually got to the I think he got to the national or international level on the climbing championships, and just a phenomenal dude. Well, he loves production. I don't think he's ever going to go into consulting because he loves getting out there and just doing the work, making the right cuts, and being a great servant to his clients. And he's got a great business. He's got a same thing. He's got a business that feeds him, feeds a bunch of his employees. He and I used to go out in the forest. We'd find like the biggest, baddest trees we could find, and we'd just go climb them. And what we realized was we'd get other people coming on board, and these other, new guys in the industry or guys that were trying to get to the competitive level. And we take them and go from 0 to 60 in like 12 or 18 months. So again, that goes back to that mentorship. Is when other people see the things that are possible, all of a sudden it becomes not just possible, but realistic and probable.
Right.
So.
Right. Oh, cool. And you do a lot on video as well.
Yeah.
Right?
And shameless self-promotion.
Let's do it. Let's do some shameless self-promotion. I love it because you don't get a lot of people that put themselves out there in this industry.
Well, and on that note, as a consultant, anything I say and do can and will be held against me in a court of law or other tree guys or whatever. So yes, it is. I have to watch what I say, but I love teaching this stuff because trees really are an important part of our lives, important part of the planet, et cetera, et cetera. And so I love teaching it. Arborist on Demand is my YouTube channel. And we've got a Facebook group as well called Ask an Arborist, where we do a live stream twice a week. In theory, we've got a lot going on in personal life, but usually
I was going to ask about live stream as well, particularly because that takes a little courage to do a live stream.
I don't mind it. If you couldn't tell, I love being here and talking about this stuff, and I think it helps everybody. Everybody wins. Unfortunately, I won't knock too much on our industry organizations, but I don't think they do a great job of educating the general public. And so it's up to guys like me. Maybe you're familiar with Jacob Gilliam, John Snow, Chris Comer. These guys are out there really doing a great job of teaching the general public. And I think I mentioned before when we were trying to get our video and all that to work, like I wrote a book called The Complete Guide to Owning a Tree. And it's all about, how to plant a tree, how to water a tree, how to fertilize a tree, how to care for it. Usually it's less work than you think. But it goes into details that you might want to know, like what do you do with a neighbor's tree that's threatening your home? What do you do with a tree that's on the border of the property and your neighbor wants to remove it? How do you deal with situations like that? And so, I really love it because I think this is part of my mission in life is to teach people about the trees they love and live under. And I think it's really important that we care for the trees that we do. Where you're from, you got 500-year-old trees plus or minus all over the place. And if we don't start doing this now, if we don't start thinking about trees in terms of centuries or at least decades, we won't. Fast forward as the population grows, trees are going to get in the way and we're just going to remove them and hope for the best. And it's not
Yes.
sustainable long term.
Yeah. And you know, through the videos and the work you do, you seem to give a lot away to people. Is that a strategy that actually brings in business?
Yes, that's a really good point, Graham. I
And
love that question.
yeah, yeah, because it's you give to get.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, my Ask an Arborist group has been probably the best lead source that I've had, because we're out there giving free information. And I learned a long time ago is, you know, you can't, if let's talk about investments, you know, related to that, you're not, if you don't put money into the investment account, into the stock or the real estate or whatever, you're probably not going to make anything out of it, right? It's not going to grow.
There's nothing in there.
Exactly. And same with the tree. If you don't water it periodically in drought and you don't get it established, it's not going to grow. And I think a lot of things in life are like that. And unfortunately, in our dopamine addicted lifestyle, right, is we're so used to getting and getting and getting and getting and getting. It's really a breath of fresh air, I think, for most people when you go and give something and you don't ask for anything in return. And that's not to say that's my motivation is to be selfish. The motivation is to help people with the trees they love and live under. But what I found is that is the most beneficial and valuable marketing that money could not even buy. And it's free. Yeah, we got to go to Facebook. Like, it's all free. YouTube is free. You might have to watch an ad or two, you know, but whatever. So
yeah, I mean the time investment you put in over the time versus the reward you're getting out, it compounds.
Well, and I'll give you a perfect example is I got a call in October 2023. So a few years ago, 2.5 years ago now, about 5 days before my daughter was due. And I happened to be taking off for paternity leave. My wife is not doing well health-wise at the time. She's got a baby on the way, right? There's a lot going on. And those jerks of doctors, they were like, well, y'all are not getting younger. And they called it a geriatric pregnancy. It's like, guys, that's just, can you come up with a different word, please? That'd be good, you know? And so I take off for paternity leave and I get a phone call from a group called the Save Montrose Live Oaks. And they're not incorporated. They're not a 501(c)(3). They're just a bunch of ragtag people that happen to live in the Montrose area. And if you know Houston, Montrose is like this wildly popular, busy area. It's kind of a cut through between a couple major highways. It goes straight to the historic district and the museum district and all that. I think they said like 50 or 75,000 people traveled on it every day. And there was a political organization that had a plan. They were going to bulldoze all of the trees, which turned out to be 284 mature live oaks and other trees. And they're going to replant brand new trees. And so this group calls me out of the blue. And it's, by the way, it's because of my, where is it? I can't get it. There we go. My Ask a membership is how they found me. So they call me up and they're like, what do we do about this? I'm like, well, what are they saying? And they said, well, the trees are sick and diseased and dying and all these fun little catchwords. And they said, well, if oak wilt comes to the area, they're all screwed and they're all toast or whatever. And I said, well, that's, you know, that's objectively wrong. Yes, they're urban stressed trees. By the way, that's pretty normal. Every tree in the urban environment is outside of its element. They're going to be stressed more than a tree in the forest was typically. And there's exceptions, of course. But they said they're sick, disease, and dying. In 10 years, the canopy is going to be better. And all of those things we proved were just objectively not true. We sent letters to the mayor, to council members. I wrote up a big arborist report. And for the purpose of making it to where I am a consultant and not an advocate, I charged them a whopping $500 for like 120 hours worth of work. Right. And it's all because I had to have that on paper saying that I'm not an advocate.
Sure.
But ultimately that was free work. In fact, it was funny. I was speaking at city council and kind of giving my witness on the matter. They said, well, weren't you paid? I said, well, yeah. She said, well, how are you independent and objective? If you were paid, does that not constitute a bias? I said, well, that's interesting because the guy that condemned the trees, and I won't mention names, on the last project similar, and it's all public record, of course, earned $65,000 on doing the same amount of work that I earned $500 for.
Wow.
But whatever. the point in all of that, I did most of that pro bono, significantly less than I should have. And that opened up a whole window of opportunities. And that wasn't really the point. The point was Houston's lost. And there was a research study from 2011 to 2021. Houston in general, Harris County, has lost 1% of the canopy every single year. Well, if you know how big Houston is, that's significant. And so that's a problem. Let's play this out to its logical conclusion. This is very bad. 10, 20, 30 years down the road, this is very bad. We need to stop this. So, but as a result of me doing that work and really helping, speaking to various groups and all that about these things, that was the best marketing I've ever done. And it was all free.
That's amazing. So not only did you do something good for the trees in the community, but you also got yourself out there as well.
That's exactly right.
Essentially for free. This is what I do. I guess, again, it comes back to a conversation I was having this morning with somebody is how can we do something different to get ourselves noticed away from all the other companies that do what we do as well. And there's no rules. You can make it up as you go. That's the best thing. Start a YouTube channel, even if you're if you're just a tree service company in a small community. Why not do it? If nobody else is doing it, why not do it? Educate people in the area. Geographic relevance. You're local. People will get to know you.
That's or Facebook groups or whatever. Like there's so many
Facebook community Facebook groups,
nextdoor.com, there's so many opportunities. Go find the one that works best for you and just start adding value to people's lives. Why not? Life's short.
Yeah. It is, you're right. Yeah, I wish more people had the sort of give to get.
Well, that's why we're here, right? To talk about these things.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So where are you headed now in the next few years?
That's fun. So I realized a long time ago that telemedicine is a real thing. You can, instead of going to the doctor, you can just call them up and get on Zoom with a doctor, sometimes same day. And you could do that. You asked about what my business does. That's part of it, is telemedicine for trees, and kind of more consulting and being there when other people can't, because quite frankly, is there, somebody said the somewhere in the world is the world's worst doctor, and they're probably booked. Same with arborists, is there's a lot of bad tree care out there. And again, for those guys, just go read books, go follow the right people and hang out in the right crowds and go to the conferences and learn and grow and become better at what you do. That's a normal human thing to do. But in terms of growth, where I'm going, I really want to make this what we're doing right now, where we're helping the industry grow. I want to make that a big thing. And I was asked by the International Society of Arboriculture this year to speak at their annual conference, which is really exciting for me. So I'll be there, I think it's Chicago or Detroit up here in August, and talking about arborist liability. So that's a big one for me, is as tree professionals, we often put ourselves in an advocate or a consulting role, even if we're not. And we say things that can get us in a lot of trouble, or do things that can get us in a lot of trouble. And one example of that, I won't go over details and mention names because the case is still active, but there was a group that was hired by a city to go in and do a tree inventory for all these trees, and they failed to bring to the city's attention this 8-inch dead limb. And that limb, one day, as they're doing the inventory, they'd already inventoried that tree. They didn't mention it. They didn't call it out. The limb fell and it crushed a guy, leaving a wife as a widow and children without a father. And he was an older gentleman, right? The kids are already grown. They're not missing out terribly much, although I don't want to lose my dad still too. And so it was tragic, but the attorneys and all the people involved were like, well, what leg do we have to stand on? Can we go through best management practices or ISA NCA 300 standards or whatever? I said, that's great. But even beyond that go back to the Arborist Ethics Agreement, the ISA Ethics Agreement, and we look here on the last paragraph, it says that we have a duty, if we see something, to say something. And so it's little things like that And again, I don't want to be the one to eat my own, but I think we need to take more responsibility as professionals. And I think they had an ethical and a moral obligation to make that known to the city that hired them and paid them all these thousands of dollars to go and do this inventory system. They had a responsibility to let them know that, and they didn't. And now somebody lost their dad and their husband.
Right. I find no matter what you do in life, familiarity often leads to
Mm.
complacency, and it actually takes you a real consciousness to make sure that you don't take shortcuts, or you do the things that you should be
Yeah.
doing, even though it comes naturally and easily. And I wonder if that's something that needs to be fixed in tree care
Yep.
as well.
Yes, and on the subject of safety, right? As we're in the deadliest or the hazardousest industry in the
Right.
U.S. and number 3
Right.
overall in the world, right? We all know those numbers. We all know that you got to play by the rules. But then we get out in the tree and we're just a bunch of dudes doing dude things, and sometimes we get complacent. And I read a study, and it was talking about
Mm.
police force, and they said the average injury is or worse is happens after year 15 was the average. And I got to thinking about it,
Mm.
and it's like, why is that?
Wow.
Because these are trained professionals. These are guys that are serious at what they do. And I had an incident too where I got a little complacent and I wound up sliding down a palm tree because I said, well, the
Mm.
line's not directly over the center, but it's still over 5 fronds, probably okay. And I climbed the tree anyways. And thank God I had my backup, my lanyard on, but I wound up burning the daylights out of my finger and my forearms,
Oh,
smashing into it, into the trunk. It was
yeah,
not
yeah.
pleasant. But again, if I'd have just taken, maybe it takes another 30 minutes or an hour to set the line, it's still worth it, because that complacency is when those problems start to happen. And it's always when you get to a certain level, you start thinking, I got this, I'm bulletproof. That's usually
Mm.
when the accidents and the injuries happen.
And that's got to be a big deal for the homeowner
Oh
as
yes.
well.
Yeah.
I'm guessing,
Yeah, because
if something happens on your property.
that becomes a liability for them. Yeah. And even though they may not have anything to do with it, the homeowner absolutely can still be sued, and they can still have their lives
Oh.
ruined because you hired somebody
Mm.
to come on that wasn't certified, wasn't insured, et cetera, et cetera. That becomes somewhat of an argument of negligence on the homeowner's part.
So I'm guessing that's where good education from a company helps the homeowner make the right decision. It's not always about getting the cheapest service you can get. It is really about getting the best service you can get and realizing the consequences of your action as a homeowner.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I made a little video, and it was, where'd you go?
We're
There you
still
are.
here.
Okay, cool. Uh, yeah, I made a little video, and maybe I'll send it to you here in a minute. But the video was all about, it was like 7 questions, I think, was how to qualify an arborist. Because just because somebody says they're an arborist
Ah,
doesn't mean that they're a certified arborist,
yeah.
first of all, and it especially
Mm.
doesn't mean that they're the true professional that you think they are. Just because they have good
Yeah.
marketing doesn't mean that they're top notch, true professional that's going to do good things. I've met a countless, how many certified arborists I've known out in the line clearance industry that will gaff every
Mm.
tree that they climb, even though they're certified, even though they're good at what they do and they know how to come home at the end of the day alive.
Mm.
They still will do, and again, somewhere in the world is the world's worst doctor, and they're probably booked, and arborists are the same. And so I'll send
Yeah.
you that video, but it's 7 quick little questions
Yeah.
you can
Right.
ask
Yeah.
your potential arborist to kind of pre-qualify them. And some of them are trick questions like, hey, are you licensed and bonded? Licensing, as you know, Graham, there's only 7 states in the United States that actually have a true licensing program. And it's funny because Jon Snow actually was,
I did not
there's
know that.
7 of them. There's only 7. So if they say licensed,
Wow.
they're probably liars. Statistically, they're probably
Huh.
liars, depending on where you are. If it's New Jersey or Connecticut or Massachusetts, they have licensing programs. That's awesome. I think every state or even at the federal level needs that. And so just because they said, well, bonding insurance is not what they think it licensed and bonded, they'll put that on the marketing. And again, Jon Snow just did a little LinkedIn post about that, about how guys will say licensed and insured. And it's like, okay, what kind of insurance? What is it qualified for? Because there's a difference between landscapers insurance, which goes up to 5 feet off the ground, and arborist insurance, which goes however high you need it to. Those are very different things. So if you got a guy that was cheap and didn't want to pay the premiums that tree guys have, and he got landscapers insurance, and he goes and drops a log through your roof, he's not covered. He's not covered. And so there's so many things like that. And we all know tree guys that are shady as can be. I joke and say, like, we don't hire the doctors and the lawyers of the world to come do tree care. We usually hire the ex this and that and the other, the ex convict or the addict or whatever, And so it's pretty common for you to get some derelicts in our industry. And again, that's really what my passion is, at least for teaching industry professionals and going and speaking at the ISA conference. Is let's get more serious, guys. We're in a serious industry.
Let's elevate the industry.
We need to take ourselves seriously.
Absolutely. And that seems to be a common theme, when I talk to people on the podcast as well. It's professionalism. It's also getting paid what you should be paid.
Yeah, that too.
Creating a real business, right? Yep. That's important. Creating a real business, education, etc. Cool. Fantastic. Matt, what you were talking about books before. Yeah. Let's have another plug for your book. Actually, I must get a copy of that. But do you have any books that you would recommend for people watching right now who are trying to build a business?
Absolutely. And most of us are going to be pruners, where that's like the majority of tree care. Unfortunately, I think it should be the opposite. I think most of the focus should be on plant health care. But I divulge. I love Ed Gilman's third edition of the Illustrated Guide to Pruning. It's a wonderful book. Arboriculture, I'm drawing a blank on the name, is another great book. There's so many good ones. Even the ISA study guide is a wonderful resource. And that should be the bare minimum. The honestly, humble opinion, I think the ISA Arborist exam needs to be stronger and it needs to be harder. It's not for me to decide. I'm not in a position to do that. But one thing you can do is go to ISA's website and look up the BCMA texts, the Board Certified Master Arborist, the books that they recommend to study. And on that list is going to be some of the best books out there. Another one that I really love is Up by Roots by James Urban. That's one of my all-time favorites. But then, of course, the anti-A300 standards. These are the governing doctrines that we live by. And if it comes down to a litigation case, those are the ones that are going to be referenced. So if you're pruning trees, if you're fertilizing trees, you really need to understand the standards that are in place because of that. And then, of course, to go along with that, the ISA best management practices. You can buy them in bulk for a couple $100 for every single one that's ever been made, all the most updated versions. And that's going to be a really, really good starting place. But again, if you want to go deeper, there are so many resources out there.
It's awesome because I think reading books and education is so important no matter what you do. So why would it be any different for arborists?
Because we already know that everything there is to know about everything. That's why.
Hell, I know I do.
I'm a tree guy that can do things that people can't do too. I get it. I get the mentality.
I'm just going to roll back. You were mentioning plant healthcare there. What's your view on plant healthcare?
Yeah.
Because that sounded interesting.
Yeah, plant healthcare is, I think there was a study that was done and they said like 70 or 80% of tree care was pruning and removals, was the physical surgery, if you will, side of things.
Right.
But that leaves only 30% to 20% of tree care that's being done out there as plant health care. Well, that's not good because quite frankly, if the tree is strong and healthy, then it's going to do fine. You don't need to prune. Most people over prune. And I love hearing that, well, you got to prune trees every 2 or 3 years. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, why? Because quite frankly, there's that new prescription pruning qualification course that Ed Gilman and Lindsay Purcell are doing through ISA. You got to have a reason. It's not just go cut it to make it pretty. And I love, again, going
Right.
back to Jimmy Pritchard. He used to tell us, he said, man, if the tree put it there, we got to have a better reason to take it off, bro. And I love that because it's like, yeah, they're genetically programmed to survive.
Got it.
Trees are amazing
I
living
like that.
organisms. And yes,
Mm.
we have to prune them off of our roofs. Yes, we have to get them up to municipal clearance for the roadways so the trucks don't smash into them and cause accidents, right? Yes, those things are very important. But most of the time, the tree is going to grow really, really well on its own, and it's going to adjust its growth based on the movement of the wind and its natural elements. You and I can't change that other than coming in and doing like structural pruning. But if we make sure the tree's got it what it needs health wise, by the way, most people get that wrong too. They say nitrogen, nitrogen, nitrogen. Everything's about nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And I actually agree with phosphorus and potassium, especially phosphorus. But nitrogen, take a breath. That's like 78% nitrogen. You and I will never know what nitrogen smells like because we breathe it all day, every day. But it turns out there's microbes in the soil and in the air that will actually take that nitrogen out of the air, convert it to a form the trees can take up, and give the tree everything it needs. They'll chelate minerals out of the soil. And so most people focus on fertilizer. But what I've found, one of the most limiting factors in a tree's health is actually soil compaction. Are the microbes being fed? And by the way, oxygen, all the beneficial ones just about require oxygen to survive. And so if you've got an anaerobic condition in the soil, I actually just posted a video about roots that were being drowned out from a magnolia. We actually had to transplant this tree, and we found like the roots are crumbling. Well, that's because they're being watered every single day. That's a problem. And so that unalives the roots, it unalives the microbes, and everything suffers as a result. And so, yeah, plant health care, but mostly just keeping the stress off of the trees. And I kind of joke and tell people, it's everybody calls me like a tree doctor. You're like a tree doctor, and tree doctor, it's like, that doesn't exist. I don't have a PhD. What I am is like a tree shrink or a tree masseuse. I take the stress away from the tree. The tree does a great job of growing and surviving on its own.
That's awesome. You're taking my stress away.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I love it.
Great conversation.
I love it.
So we're coming up to the top of the hour here. Where can people find you, your business, and also your videos, actually? Because I think
I appreciate that.
Really
Arborist on Demand is our main website if you need like us to take a closer look at it. And I do work with a lot of tree guys, actually. We have a monthly recurring fee or service that we can come in and just be your go-to arborist, which is great because a lot of guys are not certified, but they need an arborist on board. So arboristondemand.com is the website. And you can just play that out. You can go to Facebook and look up Arborist on Demand. You can go to YouTube and look up Arborist on Demand. So you mentioned the videos. That's the best place to find me on the videos is on YouTube. I'm being encouraged to do TikTok, which I got mixed feelings about that, but we'll probably.
If you've got a market on TikTok, use TikTok. If you don't have a market on TikTok and you can grow one, use TikTok. And if it's not going to be a thing, stick with what you can.
YouTube seems to be the best one. We just crossed the 1,000 subscriber mark, which is really fun. And but if you got quite, and I know most of the listeners here are going to be arborists too, fellow tree guys. But for those that need a closer look, we do have a free website on Facebook. It's Ask an Arborist, where you can come in and drop questions about your trees. And I kid you not, some of the best arborists in the world are on there, just talking trees. They love answering questions, myself included.
That's amazing. Thanks. We'll be sure to put those on the show notes as well, and try and bring some traffic from listeners and viewers of the podcast here. Thanks so much for joining me, Matt. I'd love to have you on again in the future and go over some more of this. That would be great.
Thanks for having me, Graham.
In the meantime, really appreciate you being here, and I'm glad we could make it work.
Likewise, we got our technology to work.
Yes.
You too.
Take care.
Thanks, Graham. Bye now.